Live from Studio A, Benton, Arkansas, it's time for Friday in the Driveway. Friday in the Driveway is all about just talking about things to help us get through this thing called life. So now, let me introduce to you Michael R. Davis.
All right, welcome in to Friday in the Driveway right here in Studio A. And this is Studio Edition Season 2. That's right, Studio Edition Season 2. But I don't know, you might be a little bit confused right now. I don't know. You might be. And the reason
I'm confused. I'll tell you why.
Why are you confused?
Because you didn't tell me that you changed the intro there, and that's why you saw a little green screen.
That's okay? All right. No worries on that. That's fine. That's fine how it goes. But I don't know if you realize this or not, but it looks like I'm standing in my driveway. I mean, there's my truck right there, and there's my car right there, but Friday in the Driveway, but I'm still in the studio. This is my new backdrop that I got. Friday in the Driveway. Studio Edition is back in the driveway. This is Season 2, and I am your host, Michael R. Davis, so I get the privilege of being with you in this time, if you choose to be here with me, I guess. But man, I'm happy that you're here. And sitting in the technical director's seat tonight, the sidekick and technical director is my lovely wife, Carrie Davis. So Carrie, you want to go ahead and say hello and just say whatever you want?
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Hey.
So you got anything else besides hey? I mean, that's what horses eat.
I got one thing.
One thing
later. I wore my starfish shirt tonight.
Okay.
I thought it would be, not that it has anything to do with our topic tonight. I just am pointing out it's got starfish all over it.
Okay.
A friend of mine one time was wearing this, and she said, I said, how do you like my starfish shirt? And she said, what are you talking about? It's literally covered in starfish. But okay.
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, I appreciate so much my lovely wife, in whom I'm well pleased, for sitting in the technical director sidekick seat for me tonight. And I know it's Saturday, okay? I know it's Saturday. This is Friday in the Driveway. That's the brand. That's the title of the show. But I know that it's Saturday, and we're doing it on Saturday. And folks, there's been a lot going on in my life over the last few months. I'm going to be really honest with you. Ever since Christmas, just a lot of changes have taken place. And one of those changes is I started a new position with Central Baptist College. I moved into the position of Director of Online Studies, as well as the Department Chair for our PACE program. And Central Baptist College has a PACE, it's P-A-C-E, PACE, and that's Professional Adult College Education. So I'm taking over the Department Chair and Director of Online Studies. I'm still doing facilitating business classes, so I still have my business classes and so forth. So what that means is, man, I was just telling Carrie not too terribly long ago that this new job is really cutting into my time to get to do other stuff that I like to do. I mean, I have to go to work every day, and
welcome to the real world.
Do what?
Welcome to the real world.
Okay. Well, whenever you talk, you're supposed to put the camera on you.
Well, here's the deal. So,
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
For years, he worked for a major communications company, in an
telecommunications.
Whatever. And he, kind of, and even before COVID, but especially at COVID, he worked from home all the time.
From home.
And so he had, flexibility in his hours sometimes, because he's teaching classes and whatnot. His hours were flexible and things. And he could do little projects around the house, and he's a big project guy. And this
I like to do
really
projects.
Cut into his he has a lot of responsibilities right now. And now it's mowing season again. And he's mowing at the church again. So it's just, and he mows our yard, and he mows his parents' yard, so it's just, he has so many activities.
So I've had so much to do, folks, and I've been busy, and that's why I haven't launched season 2 of Studio Edition Friday in the Driveway until tonight. But folks, I'm making this announcement that probably Friday in the Driveways are going to be on Saturday for season 2. I think Saturday is just a better day because I'm going to have to work up to 3-4 o'clock on Friday afternoons. So I think Saturday. So you're going to be viewing Friday in the Driveway on Saturday, season 2 here, Studio Edition. Even though I look like I'm in my driveway, I'm so proud of my backdrop here. It just I'm just back in the driveway, and it's
really cool. It brings back the old time. You remember that time that we did it on the deck?
I did. I remember that.
Cold as the dickens.
Cold.
Did it on the deck.
That's back when we just used phones. We didn't have any cameras or studio equipment or anything like that. We just used our phones. But I remember we'll go back and bring some of those up and do a look back episode where we pull up some of those old clips. But
yeah, you should do the clip, and you should definitely have the clip where your mom dropped her tea.
Spilt her tea. Sure did. Just walked right over and spilt her tea right there. And by the way, I have my sweet tea, so I don't know if you have your sweet tea right now, but Carrie doesn't have sweet tea. She has some Diet Coke, I think, in a Chick-fil-A cup, which we do not bow down to any corporate sponsor unless they're willing to pay.
But it is Christian chicken, so we do support it. Now, if anyone knows me, and especially if you work with me, you know that this is what I'm either going to have a cup like this or a Sonic cup, and it's going to have Diet Coke in it. Okay. And so I said to him tonight, I said, do we have to have tea, or can we just have our real drinks? He said, you can have your real drink, so here we go.
And I went ahead and I've got the sweet tea in, and we had some sweet tea, and I'm going to tell you what kind of sweet tea, but I just took a drink of this, and it's not good. It does not taste good at all.
And that's probably why nobody drank it at the young adult small group that we got it for. Always you should go with Milo's or Red Diamond.
Folks, this tea that I have here, I'm not going to mention this is not any good. All right, so I won't be drinking that tonight. But never the how, clinker clank, and you can drink your sweet tea.
Clinker clank.
But anywho.com. Friday in the Driveway. Have you ever wondered why do we even do Friday in the Driveway? I mean, why do we even do it? I'm glad you asked. I'm going to tell you why we do it. We do it because we just want to talk about things to kind of help us get through this thing called life. That's why we do Friday in the Driveway. So tonight, our hot, are we calling it a hot topic? That's what
I have a question first.
Oh, here we go.
Have you ever noticed that your catchphrase there has things in it twice? I just need to point that out. Just
talk about things
to get through this thing called life. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to talk about things. That's the topic. To get through these things, which are the things of life.
Oh, so it's like a colon, like to talk about things, or
I didn't realize that I was in
to get through this thing called
English
life.
Comp 1 today. I didn't realize that I needed to punctuate my catchphrase for my show. But anyway,
I would have thought that it was evident about 6 months into our relationship that you live.
We want to talk about things
class.
To get through this thing called life. So that's the way it is. So you're going to have to deal with it. But that's why we do Friday the Driveway. That's why we're here. That's why we do. And tonight, our topic is for such a time as this. For such a time as this. You know, Carrie, I was just thinking about, has there ever been a time when you were like in the right place at the right time?
I've been in the wrong place at the wrong time a whole lot.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, that's the thing.
I was in the right place at the right time to meet you.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. What? No doubt about it. You know, a lot of times when we think about being at the right place at the right time, we always talk about we were at the wrong place at the right time, or at the wrong place.
Yeah.
So it's kind of has a. But you know, I can remember when I was in my late 20s, maybe early 30s. I used to travel around and do youth rallies and little concerts and things like that. And my brother-in-law, who wasn't my brother-in-law back then, but Kelly Jones, we used to travel around, and we had a little trailer. We had a church. We used the church van. We pulled my little trailer with all of our equipment in it, and we'd go around and we would do youth rallies and concerts and worship rallies and things like that. And I can remember we were on Interstate I-30, and we had journeyed through Benton, through Saline County. I think we were headed to Hope, if my memory serves me correct. I can't really remember, but I remember that we pulled off of the road. We needed to get gas. We had to check something. Something happened that caused us to have to pull off the road. So we pulled off the road, and while we were pulled off the road, it started storming real bad. So we just stayed put because it was storming real bad. And, you know, we didn't want to pull that trailer in the storm. And when we got back out on the road, we journeyed down a little bit, and we began to see cars that were turned over in the middle of the interstate. And
No way.
And what had happened is a tornado. That was the year that tornado came, and it crossed I-30. And I can't remember the town that it really hit really hard. Maybe Arkadelphia. Maybe it was Arkadelphia. I can't remember. But anyway, needless to say, we pulled off of the road and stopped. And if we hadn't have, we very well would have been, we would have been right in the middle of that tornado, and it would have blown us. It would have, I mean, that little trailer, Kelly and I built it. It was a good trailer, don't get me wrong, but boy, it would.
Not tornado ready, though.
Yeah, there's no trailer tornado ready. But anywho.com, that was such a time as this. We were able to pull over and miss that. And you know, they say that being in the wrong place at the wrong time is just really pure unlucky. And I don't know whether you believe in luck or not. I typically don't. But when it comes to being in the right place at the right time, when you're in the right place at the right time, there's nothing lucky about it, but I'm just going to say that it's just by the grace of God. It's God's grace at work in your life. Now, there is a story in the Old Testament, and it's a whole book of the Bible is really dedicated to the story of an orphan Jewish girl, a little orphan Jewish girl by the name of Esther. Oh, Esther, Esther. And this past Sunday night, I preached a message on Esther, and it's why it's fresh in my mind tonight. And I just kind of wanted to share a little bit when it comes to for such a time as this. You know, just some encouragement to help you get through life. And, you know, the story of Esther found in the book of Esther, and it's an Old Testament story, and it follows this Jewish woman, this Jewish orphan, who becomes queen of Persia and uses her position to save her people from destruction. Esther, she was chosen by King to be his queen after his previous queen, Vashti, really was kicked out, and she refused to see the king when he requested that she come. Esther does keep her Jewish identity in secret, and she has a cousin who's raised her. His name is Mordecai, and she was advised by Mordecai that Haman, who was a leader in King Xerxes' regime, Haman was the king's chief advisor, had put into action, what would you call it, a decree. The king put a decree in place that all the Jewish people were to be killed. And this really enrages Mordecai. And not only does it make Mordecai, but the reason all this happened was because Haman was this chief advisor, and he wanted everybody to bow down to him. But Mordecai didn't bow down to Haman. And because Mordecai refused to bow down, that's when he began to plot to annihilate the Jews, to eliminate the Jews in the empire. So, you know, he kind of manipulatively secured a royal decree, and Mordecai urges Esther to intervene, warning her that she too would not be safe if the Jewish people were wiped out. So despite the risk of this approaching, here's the thing about King Xerxes, and Carrie, I may have to implement this in our life. I don't know, but
I doubt it.
But you didn't go before the king unless you were invited. That's just the thing. If you couldn't just show up and be seen by the king. If you showed up, you know, that was an offense that was you could be put to death for doing that.
You know, I think we should. I
What are you talking?
We should institute this. And so if I want to see you, I'll let you know, and then I'll extend my scepter to you, and you can come in.
So you're saying, by the way, I got me a Diet Mountain Dew because that tea is no good. I'll tell you what, Carrie, put the camera on you real quick if you would.
I don't.
Okay, and I'm going to set this over here. I'll put my Diet Mountain Dew right there. Okay, you can go back to me now. All right, so.
And magically, his drink.
So you
different.
want the decree to be for me to enter your presence?
Oh, was that not what you meant?
No, I was talking about my presence.
I assume that's what you meant.
Anywho.com, Mordecai here urges Esther to intervene. And she does. And she does it at the risk of her own life. She bravely intervenes and invites the king and Haman to 2 banquets. Now, the reason she had to invite him to 2 banquets is because she kind of chickened out on the first banquet. She was going to intervene during the first banquet, but she chickened out, so she had to have a second banquet. And at that second banquet, she does reveal her Jewish identity and exposes Haman's plot. And this enraged the king. And the king orders that Haman is to be executed on the very gallows that he prepared for Mordecai. And he issued a new decree. The king issued a new decree that allowed the Jews to defend themselves, leading to their victory over the enemies. And the Jews established the festival of Purim to commemorate their deliverance, celebrating God's providence and Esther's courage. So that's the book of Esther right there. What do you think? You know, we went to, this past week, we went to Branson. We went to the Sight and Sound Theater. We saw David. So good.
Excellent.
So good. But we also went there and we saw Esther, which that was equally
also
as good. Yeah. So
they just don't put on. They just don't do a bad. I mean, and we were talking about those with your parents after, because they went to Branson with us and we were talking about it. And you know, your dad said, you know, he understands it's a theatrical, you know, production. There's going to be some license taken a little bit, but not much. They stay pretty true to biblical story. But the thing that they do is they make it so real.
Yeah.
Their sets, the way the people, you know, the costumes, all the things about it make it so real to you, and that's what I love about it. It's like nothing I've ever seen before.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else thought it was cool, but I thought it was cool at Sight and Sound is when Goliath came out, how they portrayed Goliath. And I mean, he was humongous. It was just impressive. But back to Esther. Now that's King David. All right, that's another story for another day. But we're in Esther, and really, you know, when Mordecai finds out that there's this, that he offended Haman, and Haman has manipulated this decree that the Jewish people are going to be annihilated, he goes into mourning. And I think the scripture talks about how he put on sackcloth and ashes and mourning attire. And this is when he urges Esther to intervene. And probably the most popular verse in Esther is Esther chapter 4 and verse 14, where Mordecai is urging Esther to intervene, and he says, "Who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this?"
Well, definitely she had.
Yeah. I mean, we see the rest of the story.
You know, we talked about how God's name is not mentioned in this book. Of course, it's, about the fate of his people. So, I mean, he is in it. But it's a book about providence, about the way that God orchestrates events. And I know, and you and I have talked about this before, that we can look back on our lives now that we are middle-aged, and we can see clearly how God has moved, in our lives, has brought people in, taken people out, changed circumstances, and man, you really see that in this book.
Yeah. And, Esther was just an ordinary person, just an ordinary Jewish girl, but God
Well,
used...
she was probably pretty. I mean...
Well, she was very beautiful.
Yeah.
That was evident in the king selecting her as queen, but still, just an ordinary Jewish girl that God used for extraordinary purposes. So there's three things that I want us to look at. And if you were at Trinity Baptist Church, 702 Church Street, Benton, Arkansas, this past Sunday night, these very points you heard in my message that I preached, but I wanted to use them tonight on Friday in the Driveway as well. And the three things that I want us to see, number one is divine purpose in unlikely places. Boom. Divine purpose in unlikely places is the first thing. Now, it says Jeremiah 29:11 down there. That's wrong. That's not Jeremiah 29:11. That's just my first point, and it's probably going to be true of my other points too. But anywho.com, we see here in verse 14 that Esther was a Jewish orphan, but God raised her to be queen of Persia. She did not seek power, but God placed her where he needed her. And folks, God is going to place you where he needs you. We need to look at where God is working and join him there. And know that God is in control. Sometimes we find ourselves in unexpected places, and God is positioning us for his purpose. Our past, our background, that does not disqualify us from being used of God. Think of Moses. He was a stuttering shepherd turned leader. Think of King David. We just talked about King David. He was a shepherd boy turned king. God often uses ordinary people for extraordinary purposes. So the first thing I want to see is divine purpose in unlikely places. And then secondly, I want us to see courage and faith over fear. In verse 16 of Esther chapter 4, it says, "If I perish, I perish." And what Esther's saying here is she realizes that if she goes before the king unannounced, that she is putting her life on the line. She realizes that, and she says, if I perish, I perish. She is willing to sacrifice it all for the cause of saving the Jewish people. Esther faced a life-threatening choice. She could remain silent and she could stay safe, but she risked her life to save her people. She chooses faith over fear, approaching the king even though it could cost her life. Man, these were some bold steps. And you know what? There's going to be times in our life when we've got to take bold steps of faith. We've got to take bold steps of faith and overcome that fear. Sometimes fear can paralyze us, but faith empowers us to step forward. Carrie, you ever been afraid?
I'm just sitting here listening to you and thinking, I'm a hereditary worrier. I got it from my mom. My dad was not a worrier. He was kind of like you. He kind of just took life as it happened and figured everything would work out all right. My mom, on the other hand, feared every possible thing going wrong, and I didn't think I would be like this. I really didn't when I was young. I didn't.
Yeah.
But with kids and family and taking care of older parents and money and it's just life is full of things to worry about, and I have a constant struggle. Yeah. To choose faith over fear.
Yeah.
Constant.
Yeah. Cast your cares upon me, the Lord says, for I love you. I care for you. Don't be anxious for anything, but in everything pray. But you know what?
I'm sorry, but here's the thing.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
I don't know why I do that, because every time he works it out. Every time.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a time that I've worried about something that I've fallen flat on my face, or that the thing that I laid awake worrying about has actually happened. And so he has proven himself over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about being human, is that we only see the things that we can see.
Yeah. We are bound by that curse. We're kind of in a holding pattern here. We consistently and daily have a civil war of the heart, where our flesh, which is cursed because of sin, and then the spirit, which is made alive in Christ. Those two things are warring against each other. And sometimes, Carrie, we just have to pray as we worry and ask the Lord to forgive us. Yeah. Here's the point about true faith, is that true faith is not the absence of fear. True faith is not the absence of fear, but it's the willingness to obey God despite it.
Right.
And you do that. I'm sorry, but you do that. You're obedient to God despite the fear that often, overtakes us. I'm reminded of Peter. Remember when Peter in Matthew 14, his faith required he had to step out of the boat onto the water. Sometimes we just need to step out in faith when the situation seems risky. And Esther did that.
Well, and sometimes he gives us a person in our lives who helps us remember that God is faithful all the time and that things will be okay. And you're my person. You're the person who says to me, it's going to be okay. God's going to take care of it. And so thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Well, you're my person too. And, God knew what he was doing when he introduced you to me. I believe that. And honey, that was just real sentimental there.
All right.
Okay, but anywho.com, Esther, Divine Purpose in Unlikely Places. courage and faith over fear. And then lastly tonight, God's providence and justice. In Esther chapter 9 and verse 1, I don't have it on the screen, but God's providence, there it is, and justice. Esther 9:1 says, on the very day when the enemies of the Jews hoped to gain mastery over them, the reverse occurred. So the reverse occurred. Haman plotted to destroy the Jews, but God flipped the script.
Plot twist, love it.
Haman was executed. And what was crazy about this is Haman took all this time and built these gallows for Mordecai and his family to be executed on. And those are the very gallows that were used to execute him. So God definitely flipped the script in that regard. Through God's, you mentioned this earlier, Carrie, and that, God's name is not mentioned in the book of Esther at all. God is not mentioned, but God is all over this. But even though God's name is not mentioned, his hand is clearly at work here. And you know what? What that teaches me is that even though I can't see him, even though sometimes I can't see God, God is always working behind the scenes. The enemy's plans will never prevail over God's plans. The enemy's plans are never going to prevail over God's plans. In the end, God's justice will prevail for his people.
Amen.
That's what we learn in Esther. We see that in Joseph's life. Remember Joseph, Genesis 50:20 says, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. His brothers sold him off into slavery. But yet God put Joseph where he needed Joseph to be to fulfill his purpose. And Joseph ultimately became king and took care of his brothers. God can turn trials into triumphs. God turns our trials into triumphs. So Esther's life teaches us these three powerful lessons. That God has placed us where we are for a reason. That we must step out in faith even when we're afraid. And folks, God is always in control, bringing justice in his time. So, what position has God placed you in for such a time as this? What step of faith is God calling you to take? Do you trust God even when he seems silent? Thank you for spending this time with me. Be sure and check us out on the World Wide Web at www.michaelrdavisministries.yolasite.com. And the reason it's .yolasite.com is because it's free.
I might have accidentally muted you during some of that.
You muted me during some of that?
At the beginning. I'm sorry. It was all good stuff. I hope people heard it.
Maybe they read my lips. I would say it again if I knew exactly what I said, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all good.
Okay.
Whatever.
All right. No, but be sure and check us out on the World Wide Web at michaelrdavisministries.yolasite.com. Be sure and like and share. All right. Like and share. Visit us on YouTube and Facebook Live TV and all that good stuff. Like and share. And it's definitely a pleasure to, hopefully we've encouraged you a little bit tonight. Just remember, faith over fear. And God wants to use you because he's putting you where he needs you. So just trust him. Just trust him. Michael Davis is my name. And thank you to Carrie Davis, my lovely wife, in whom I am well pleased for being our sidekick and technical director. Go ahead and say goodnight to everybody.
I'm really a terrible technical director.
You're not either.
I'm much better at the executive producer role, where I just watch it in the house, and if something goes wrong, I run out here and point it out. That's really my forte. So,
Well,
but I keep it interesting. 'Cause
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen.
You don't never know what's going to happen, but we just, we just have to, little babe went off to college, and she's at college doing her own little things, and I'm just proud of her. I'm really proud of her, but she's not around a lot of times to be sidekick and technical
she's
director.
really the expert.
I really need to, maybe get somebody else who'd be willing to do it more frequently. But anyway, we'll pray about that. But thank you, Carrie, for being my technical director tonight. And thank you for tuning in to Friday in the Driveway on Saturday. Hey, this is Studio Edition Season 2. Look at my new backdrop here. My Chevrolet here, my Honda right here. Oh, yeah, I'm not in the driveway. It's an optical illusion. I'm in the studio. Did you like my hand motions there?
Great.
I was looking at myself in the screen.
Optical illusion
Look at
hand
that.
motion.
Whoa, oh!
Nice.
You see that? Look, hon. Oh, yeah.
What's that called? The
I don't know.
slot?
Break dancing.
Whatever.
Break dancing. Oh, yeah. But you know what? I am going to have to get back on this diet. God, because I'm...
Just sucking in the whole
God! I just struggle with that. But anywho.com. Hey, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you back here real soon. Friday in the Driveway on Saturday.